I watched the lawyer's lips move, but the words didn't make sense. My father's funeral was 3 hours ago, and now I sat in this cold office while Marcus Flynn read the will. Victoria, my stepmother, sat across from me with her hands folded. She wore black, but her eyes gleamed. "The entire estate goes to Victoria Hayes," Marcus said flatly. My throat tightened. "What? That's impossible. Dad promised me." "Your father changed his mind before he died," Marcus interrupted, not looking at me. Victoria's mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I felt my chest collapse. Everything, the house where I grew up, the business my grandfather built, the savings account Dad said would pay for my college, gone. "This can't be legal," I whispered. Marcus slid a document across the desk. Official stamps, signatures, it looked real. Victoria stood up, smoothing her dress. She reached into her purse and pulled out a single envelope. "Your father wanted you to have this." My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was an eviction notice. 30 days to leave my childhood home. I looked up at Victoria. She wasn't smiling anymore. She was smirking. I packed my things in garbage bags while Victoria watched from the doorway. My room, the room where Dad used to read me bedtime stories, felt like a stranger's now. Every item I touched was a memory being ripped away. "You were always the outsider," Victoria whispered, leaning against the doorframe. Her biological children, Natalie and Oliver, stood behind her. Natalie grabbed our family photo from my hands and tore it down the middle, right through Dad's face. She laughed. The sound echoed in my skull. I didn't cry. I wouldn't give them that. I grabbed my last bag and headed toward the door. Oliver, only 10 years old, stepped forward. He looked scared. Victoria glared at him, but he moved anyway. "Wait," he whispered. He pressed something into my palm, a folded piece of paper. His eyes were wet. "Dad told me to give this to you if something happened." Victoria's voice cut through the air. "Oliver, get back here." I shoved the paper into my pocket and walked out. The door slammed behind me. I had nowhere to go, no money, no plan, but I had that letter. I sat on a park bench under a streetlight and unfolded Oliver's letter. My father's handwriting stared back at me, messy and urgent. "Jordan, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. Victoria has been moving money behind my back. I've hidden a key to a safety deposit box at First National Bank. Account 4789. Don't trust anyone. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better." Dad, my vision blurred. He knew. He knew she was dangerous, and he tried to warn me. I clutched the letter to my chest and sobbed. People walked past me like I was invisible. Maybe I was. The next morning I went to the bank. My clothes were wrinkled and my face was puffy from crying. The teller looked at me like I was dirt. "I need to access safety deposit box 4789, I said, showing her the letter. She typed something into her computer. Her face changed. "I'm sorry, but that account was closed last week." My stomach dropped. "Closed by who?" "Victoria Hayes," she said quietly. I felt the walls closing in. I demanded to see the manager. A nervous man in a cheap suit appeared, sweat already forming on his forehead. "Who closed that account?" I asked, my voice steady despite the panic crawling up my spine. He hesitated. Then he pulled up the records and squinted at the screen. "The signature here, it doesn't match our files." "What does that mean?" "It means someone forged your father's signature." He looked terrified, like saying it out loud made it real. "Who came in to close it?" I pressed. He clicked through the system. "Victoria Hayes. She came in 5 days before your father's death. She was accompanied by—" He paused, his face going pale. "A lawyer named Marcus Flynn." The room tilted. Marcus Flynn. The same man who read the will. The same man who told me my father changed his mind. "Do you have cameras?" I asked. "We keep footage for 30 days, but—" He lowered his voice. "If you're accusing someone of fraud, you need to go to the police." I left the bank shaking. Marcus and Victoria. They planned this together. They stole everything while my father was still alive, maybe even while he was dying. I sat in a coffee shop bathroom stall and searched Marcus Flynn's name on my phone. His law firm website showed his face, smiling and professional. Then I found his personal social media. My blood turned to ice. There were old photos, deleted but archived by nosy internet users. Marcus and Victoria at a restaurant. Marcus and Victoria on a beach. All dated years ago, long before she married my father. They weren't just partners in crime. They were married. Victoria never divorced Marcus. She committed bigamy to steal my father's fortune. I felt rage bubble up inside me, hot and violent. They didn't just steal from me. They destroyed my father. They lied to him, manipulated him, and when he figured it out, they silenced him. I closed my eyes and made a promise to myself, to my father's memory. You stole everything from me, but I'll make sure you choke on it. I had no money, no home, no allies, but I had the truth, and I would make them pay. I found work cleaning offices at night. The pay was terrible, but it came with access to a storage room where I could sleep. I survived on vending machine snacks and water fountain refills. Every muscle in my body ached, but I kept moving. One night, while emptying trash cans on the third floor, I overheard voices in a conference room. The door was cracked open. I froze. The properties under the Hayes estate are clean, a man said. We've moved the assets through the shell companies. No one will trace it. I peeked through the crack. My heart stopped. It was Marcus Flynn's law firm, the same office that handled my father's will. What about the real estate fraud charges? Another voice asked. Buried under false names, including the kids. If anyone investigates, Jordan takes the fall. They were laundering money, and they were using my name to do it. I pulled out my phone and started recording. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped it. This was it. This was the proof I needed. But I couldn't go to the police yet. I needed more. I needed everything. The next night I snuck into the file room. I wore gloves and kept my head down. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would give me away. I found the drawer labeled Hayes Estate and pulled out folders. Inside were documents showing fake businesses, offshore accounts, and property transfers. My name appeared on 3 of them. Businesses I never started, loans I never took. They set me up. If anyone investigated, I'd look guilty. I photographed everything with my phone, hands trembling. Then I put the files back exactly as I found them. As I turned to leave, I heard footsteps. I dove behind a filing cabinet and held my breath. A security guard passed by, flashlight sweeping the room. He didn't see me. When he was gone, I ran. Back in my storage room, I stared at the photos. I had evidence, but I was alone. If I went to the police now, Marcus and Victoria would destroy me. I needed someone on my side, someone who hated Victoria as much as I did. Then I remembered Claire, my father's assistant. Victoria fired her the week after Dad died. I found Claire working at a diner across town. She looked older, tired. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. Jordan, she whispered, pulling me into a hug. I heard what she did to you. We sat in a corner booth and I told her everything. She listened, her jaw tight with anger. Your father never changed his will, she said firmly. I was there when he signed it. Everything was supposed to go to you. Can you testify to that? She nodded. Then she reached into her apron and pulled out a small USB drive. He gave this to me 2 weeks before he died. He said, if anything happens to me, make sure Jordan gets this. My hands shook as I took it. What's on it? I don't know. I was too scared to look, but he was terrified. Jordan, he knew something bad was coming. I plugged the USB into my phone using an adapter. Files appeared, audio recordings, dozens of them. I pressed play on the first one. My father's voice filled my ears and I started crying. The recordings were like listening to a ghost. My father's voice was shaky, paranoid. He talked about noticing missing money, about Victoria lying, about Marcus showing up at the house when he wasn't supposed to be there. I think she's planning something, he said in one recording. I've changed my passwords. I've hidden the real will with my lawyer, not Marcus, someone else. If I die suddenly, it's not an accident. I listened, tears streaming down my face. The last recording was the worst. My father was coughing, his voice weak. She's been putting something in my food. I know it. I feel sick all the time now. I need to. Then there was a crash, the sound of something falling. The recording cut off. Claire covered her mouth. Oh my God. She killed him, I whispered. She murdered my father. My hands balled into fists. This wasn't just theft anymore. This was murder, and I was going to prove it. I tracked down the housekeeper who worked for my father, a woman named Rosa. She lived in a small apartment on the east side. When I knocked, she opened the door a crack, eyes wide with fear. I can't talk to you, she said quickly. Please, I need to know what happened the night my father died. She looked around nervously, then let me in. We sat at her kitchen table. Her hands shook as she poured tea. Your father was sick that night, very sick. He asked me to call an ambulance. And Victoria told me to wait. She said he just had a stomach bug. She made me go home. Rosa's voice cracked. When I left, he was alive, weak but alive. But Victoria said he died of a heart attack. Rosa looked at me with haunted eyes. He wasn't dying when I left the room. She was there with him, alone. My blood ran cold. Victoria didn't just let him die. She made sure he did. I thanked Rosa and left. I had testimony, I had recordings, I had proof. It was time to go to the police. The police station smelled like coffee and cleaning solution. I sat across from an officer who looked bored before I even started talking. I played him the recordings. I showed him the forged documents. I explained everything. He leaned back in his chair and sighed. "Look, kid, this is a civil matter. We can't reopen a closed case without solid evidence. I just gave you evidence. You gave me recordings that don't prove murder. You gave me documents that could be explained away by a good lawyer, which, by the way, she has." He stood up. "I'm sorry for your loss, but the case is closed." I walked out of the station, shaking with rage. They didn't care. No one cared. Outside, I stopped to catch my breath. That's when I noticed the black SUV parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine running. I started walking. The SUV followed. My heart pounded. I ducked into an alley. The SUV pulled up to the entrance, blocking my escape. A man in a suit stepped out. He didn't say his name. He didn't need to. "Walk away," he said coldly. "You've already lost." Then he got back in the SUV and drove off. I didn't sleep that night. I kept the lights off in my storage room, staring at the door, waiting for it to burst open. The threat was clear. They were watching me. They knew what I was doing. But I wasn't going to stop. I couldn't. The next morning I went to work as usual, but when I returned to my storage room that evening, the lock was broken. The door hung open. I stepped inside, heart racing. Everything was trashed. My clothes were scattered. My few belongings were destroyed. And the letter from my father that Oliver gave me was gone. I sank to the floor, shaking. They were trying to erase every piece of evidence, every piece of him. But they didn't know about the USB drive. Claire still had copies. They didn't know about the photos on my phone. I wasn't beaten yet. I grabbed what I could and left. I couldn't stay there anymore. I bought a burner phone with the last of my cash and texted Claire. "I need your hacker friend now." I met Claire and her friend Kai in a parking garage at midnight. Kai was young, maybe 20, with dyed hair and a laptop covered in stickers. "Claire says you need help," Kai said, sizing me up. I showed them everything. The documents, the recordings, the threats. Kai's expression darkened. "They're moving money offshore. If they finish the transfers, you'll never get it back." "Can you stop them?" Kai grinned. "I can do better than stop them. I can expose them." We spent the next 2 days planning. Kai taught me how to use encrypted messages and cover my tracks. We made copies of everything and stored them in multiple places. "If we're doing this," Kai said, cracking their knuckles, "we're doing it loud." I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. We had a plan, and it was time to execute it. Kai hacked into Marcus Flynn's law firm email server. It took hours, but finally the screen lit up with messages. "Jackpot," Kai whispered. Victoria and Marcus had been emailing about selling properties and moving the money abroad. There was a timeline, a specific date, 7 days. In 7 days they'd be gone and the money would disappear forever. "We have to move fast," I said. Kai nodded. "I'll compile everything. But we need a way to make this public, really public." That's when I remembered. Victoria was throwing a party, a celebration dinner for her success. She invited half the city's elite to show off her new wealth, my father's wealth. "She's having a party in 5 days, I said slowly. "What if we crashed it?" Kai's eyes lit up. "What if we did more than crash it? What if we made sure everyone saw the truth?" We worked through the night, building the plan piece by piece. It was risky. It was insane. But it was the only shot I had. The night of the party, I stood outside the mansion, my mansion, dressed in a catering uniform. Claire got me the job through a friend. My hands were sweating, but my mind was clear. Inside, Victoria laughed with guests, wearing diamonds that used to belong to my grandmother. Marcus stood beside her, playing the role of the dignified lawyer. I carried trays of champagne, keeping my head down. No one recognized me. To them I was invisible. Kai's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Cameras are in position. I've got control of the house's smart TV system. Are you ready?" I set down my tray and moved toward the main room. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. "Ready?" I whispered. Kai's voice came back, steady and sure. "Then let's burn it all down." I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment everything changed. Kai sent the text, "It's time." Every television in the house flickered on at once. The party chatter stopped. Guests turned, confused. Then my father's voice filled the room. The recordings played, his fear, his accusations, his final words before he died. The screens showed documents, the forged will, the fake businesses, the offshore accounts. Victoria's face went white. She grabbed Marcus's arm, but he was frozen, staring at the screens in horror. "What is this?" someone shouted. "Turn it off," Victoria screamed, but it didn't stop. More evidence flashed across the screens. Photos of Marcus and Victoria together years before she married my father, bank records, emails planning the theft. Guests gasped. Someone pulled out their phone and started recording. Marcus bolted for the door. He ran toward his car, but as he reached it, red and blue lights flooded the driveway. Police cars blocked the exits. I stepped out of the shadows, pulling off the catering uniform. Victoria saw me. Her expression twisted into pure rage. "You," she hissed. "Me," I said. The police moved in. Marcus and Victoria were arrested on the spot: fraud, forgery, obstruction of justice. The charges kept coming. News vans appeared within minutes, cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions. I stood on the sidewalk watching it all unfold. Victoria screamed at the officers, claiming it was all a setup. Marcus stayed silent, his face blank. Claire appeared beside me. "You did it," she whispered. I didn't feel victorious. I felt numb. The police took statements from guests. The evidence Kai compiled was handed over. Everything was finally coming to light. But as I walked back to Claire's car, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You think you've won? Check your account." My stomach dropped. I opened my banking app. My balance showed $2 million. I didn't put that money there. Claire saw my face. "What's wrong?" Before I could answer, police cars pulled up behind us. An officer stepped out. Jordan Hayes. "You need to come with us." My world tilted. They set me up again. I sat in an interrogation room staring at a detective who didn't believe a word I said. $2 million appeared in your account from the Hayes estate, he said. "Care to explain?" "It's a setup," I said desperately. "They're framing me." "Convenient. You expose them and suddenly you're the victim." He leaned forward. "Or maybe you were working with them all along and this is just a cover." I felt panic rising. "I didn't take that money. Check the transfer records. Check the IP address. It wasn't me." But I could see it in his eyes. He thought I was guilty. Hours passed. They kept me there, asking the same questions over and over. I wanted to scream. Finally, they let me sit alone. That's when a guard slipped me an envelope. "Someone left this for you," he said quietly. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside were documents, old, faded marriage certificates. Victoria and Marcus's marriage. Dated 5 years before she married my father. My breath caught. She was never legally married to my father, which meant she had no legal claim to his estate. Everything she took was illegal from the start. I stood up and pounded on the door. "I need a lawyer, now." Kai disappeared. Their phone was disconnected, their apartment empty. Claire got pulled in for questioning and I couldn't reach her. I sat in a holding cell, feeling the walls close in. They isolated me on purpose. They wanted me to feel helpless, but I wasn't giving up. A public defender visited me, a tired woman named Ms. Ortiz. I showed her the marriage documents. "If she was still married to Marcus, her marriage to your father was void," she said slowly. "That changes everything." "Can you get me out of here?" She nodded. "I'll file a motion. But Jordan, if that money trail leads back to you, this gets worse before it gets better." That night, lying on the hard cot, I thought about my father, about his voice on those recordings, about how he tried to protect me even when he was dying. I wouldn't let him down. The next morning, Ms. Ortiz returned. "You're being released, but you're not clear yet." As I walked out of the police station, blinking in the sunlight, I saw someone waiting. Claire. She hugged me tight. "We're not done yet." We went to a new lawyer, someone with no connection to Marcus's firm. His name was Mr. Brennan, and he had a reputation for taking down corrupt officials. I laid out everything: the forged will, the fake marriage, the money laundering, the attempted frame job. Mr. Brennan listened, taking notes. When I finished, he sat back and smiled grimly. "You've got enough to bury them," he said, "but we need to move fast." They'll try to make a deal before this goes to trial. I don't want a deal, I said. I want justice. He nodded. Then let's file a countersuit. We'll reclaim the estate, void the will, and go after them for fraud and wrongful death. The words hung in the air, wrongful death, my father. Do it, I said. Within days, the lawsuit hit the news. Reporters camped outside the courthouse. Victoria and Marcus's faces were plastered on every channel. The trial date was set, and I was ready. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, curious onlookers, and my father's old friends filled the benches. Victoria sat at the defense table, her face hard and cold. Marcus sat beside her, fidgeting. I took the stand and told my story, every detail, every betrayal. Mr. Brennan presented the evidence, the forged will, the fake marriage certificate, the recordings, the offshore accounts. Victoria's lawyer tried to argue that the evidence was circumstantial, that I was a disgruntled child trying to steal back money I never deserved. But then Mr. Brennan dropped the final bomb. Your Honor, we request a DNA test. We believe Victoria's eldest child, Natalie, is not the biological daughter of the deceased, Thomas Hayes. The courtroom erupted. Victoria screamed, "This is ridiculous." The judge pounded his gavel. Order, I'll allow the test. Victoria's face went from red to white. Marcus looked like he was going to be sick. The judge ordered the DNA test and we adjourned. As I left the courtroom, I felt it. Victory was close. The DNA results came back 3 weeks later. I sat in the courtroom, hands clenched, as the judge read the findings. The test confirms that Natalie Hayes is not the biological daughter of Thomas Hayes. Further testing shows Marcus Flynn is her biological father. Gasps echoed through the room. Natalie, sitting in the gallery, burst into tears. Victoria stared straight ahead, her expression unreadable. This evidence suggests a pattern of deception that spans years, the judge continued. Combined with the forged documents and fraudulent financial activity, this court finds sufficient cause to void the previous will and restore the estate to Jordan Hayes. I couldn't breathe. It was over. Victoria's lawyer tried to object, but the judge silenced him. Furthermore, criminal charges for fraud, forgery, and obstruction will proceed. This case is adjourned. The gavel fell. I won. Claire hugged me, sobbing. Mr. Brennan shook my hand. Around us, reporters shouted questions, but I only watched Victoria as officers approached her. She stood slowly with dignity she didn't deserve. And then she looked at me. Our eyes met. You're just like your father, she spat. Too soft. They led her away in handcuffs. The trial for the criminal charges took months, but the outcome was inevitable. The evidence was overwhelming. Victoria was sentenced to 12 years for fraud, forgery, and tampering with legal documents. Marcus got 15 years and was disbarred. During sentencing, Marcus turned on Victoria, testifying about her plan to poison my father slowly over months. He claimed she manipulated him, that he was just following her orders. The judge didn't buy it. As Victoria was led out of the courtroom for the last time, she didn't look at me. She stared straight ahead, broken. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, just emptiness. Natalie and Oliver were placed with relatives. Oliver sent me a letter apologizing for his mother. I wrote back telling him none of it was his fault. I stood on the courthouse steps watching the news vans pack up. It was finally over. Claire touched my arm. What now? I took a deep breath. Now I go home. I walked through the mansion for the first time in months. It smelled dusty, abandoned. I opened windows, letting light flood in. Room by room, I cleaned and restored it. I donated most of Victoria's things to charity. I hung my father's photos back on the walls. With part of the estate, I created a legal aid fund for people who'd been victims of inheritance fraud. My father would have wanted that. I went back to school. I made new friends. Slowly, life started to feel normal again. One afternoon, I found a package on the doorstep. No return address. Inside was a photo of my father and me at my 8th birthday party. On the back, in his handwriting, was a note. Proud of you. You finished what I couldn't. I held the photo to my chest and cried. Good tears this time. Kai had found it in my father's hidden files and sent it anonymously before disappearing for good. I framed it and put it on my desk. I stood at my father's grave on the anniversary of his death. The headstone was clean, covered in fresh flowers I'd brought. "I did it, Dad," I whispered. "I got them, all of them." The wind rustled through the trees. Somewhere a bird sang. I thought about everything I'd lost and everything I'd gained. The money didn't matter. The house didn't matter. What mattered was the truth. What mattered was that my father's memory was restored. What mattered was that justice, real justice, had been served. I knelt down and placed my hand on the cold stone. "They thought I'd stay quiet," I said softly. "They thought they could erase me, but I learned something, Dad. Silence is just the sound before the storm." I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. The sun broke through the clouds, warming my face. I took one last look at the grave, then turned and walked toward my car. Behind me was the past, pain, betrayal, loss. Ahead of me was the future. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready for it.